I recently released my 4th game on Steam, and there are so many things I wish I knew before releasing them. Here are 3 major mistakes I made while releasing these games, so hopefully you'll avoid them and you'll have even more success than I had. The first mistake when planning my games is making games that were way too big and scoped way too large for basically no good reason. You may have heard this from a lot of other developers, but that's because it's totally true. It's always so tempting to add more features and expand what you can do in your game, but when you're actually deep into the development of the game, adding just one feature can multiply how long it takes for you to develop your entire game. That's because every feature and all the content that you add to the game has to be polished to a certain extent if you actually plan on finishing the game and showing it to other players. In my first game, I added local multiplayer, which I thought was really cool because I love multiplayer games, but I don't think it was really necessary to have that feature. And not too many people actually use that feature, so I ended up wasting time on something that I didn't really need to add, and I could have spent improving the single player version of the game. The solution is having a design that's as lean as possible, but then adding more complexity and layers to that design over time. You don't actually need a big idea or complexity in order to get players interested and get them to actually play. It's actually the other way around. You want your idea to be simple and hook players at first, and then introduce complexity and depth when they already decide to play and they're actually in the game. And they're only going to do that if at first they could understand the core idea of the game. The second is I spent way too much time basically working in the shadows. I would spend months not really sharing my game with anyone publicly, and this was a huge mistake because the feedback that you get from just random players that have an interest in that type of game and want to see more of it early on is really valuable feedback. Without this feedback, you can spend so much time on things that players aren't really going to notice or care about and not focus on the feedback that is actually going to meaningfully change your game and people are going to care about the most. I worked on the game Traveler's Bastion with my brother. We worked on it for 5 months straight and barely shared it with anyone until the last 2 weeks. And the launch day is really important, but we didn't really do that much work to build up towards it. We should have had a small public demo and reach out to people we think would really enjoy the game. That way, the launch day would have been way bigger. The game has 45,000 downloads, but you can imagine that would have been even bigger if we actually promoted the game more before launch. I think if you're a serious developer now, you basically have to post demos and devlogs of your game, sharing your thought process and your design decisions. That way you can get feedback and improve stuff way quicker than it would take if you just spent months working on stuff that you realized wasn't actually that important. Now that you're getting feedback and listening to players, you don't have to listen to all of it, but there's going to be things that you're hearing over and over again, or there's going to be things that players say that will really turn them off and they really don't like, and you want to focus on getting rid of those elements and focusing on the good of your game as soon as possible. Now, the last mistake is not really following my gut and sort of just releasing games for the sake of releasing games. Now, this is going to be different for everyone, but I sort of have a weird story because I was actually able to become a full-time game developer. Now, at first this was really great and really exciting. I had so much motivation and passion for games that it was awesome to be able to work on them full time. But developing and improving your skills as a game dev takes a long time, and so you have to be pretty patient. After 2 years of releasing 3 games on Steam, I realized that all these games were sort of stepping stones and games that I released in order to learn how to improve my game development skills. And they weren't really something that I was really excited about. But once I started working on a project that I was really excited to finish, it totally changed the game. Ultimately, you're going to face so many challenges as a game developer because there's so many different elements to actually fully releasing a game. But if you're truly passionate about your game, you're going to want to see it through all the way to the end. And it's going to be way easier to go through that whole process than it would be if you're just sort of making games just for the sake of it. And that's really a huge advantage you have as an independent game developer such as myself. And I'm really grateful to have that opportunity. Ultimately, working on creating a great game is the best thing you can do, but it's easier said than done. From what I learned, you want to make it smaller so then you can focus on making it better. Then you share it with others so you get a better idea of what players actually want from the game and what they would expect. In the game development process, I make something that I enjoy and that I'm really proud of. And by understanding what you and others enjoy about your game, you can then work to design the gameplay, art, story, and sound all in order to serve that purpose. Each individual element of your game does not have to be anywhere near perfect. As long as they all work in harmony with each other, the game is going to feel really great. My most recent release is something that I'm really proud of. It's called Koboo the Tree Spirit, and I used all of these concepts in order to make that game as good as possible. But I'm still working as a game developer to improve my skills and make Koboo the Tree Spirit even better. And so I'm going to post even more about my design decisions working on that game and what I learned fully releasing it. That way you can take away from what I did and I can hopefully learn from you guys as well. If that sounds cool to you, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.